evening and welcome to Mello TV. I'm your host, Nicole Hales. Thank you for joining us for this evening's discussion as we continue to look at the findings from a Mello TV poll conducted by pollster and CEO of Johnson Survey Research Limited, Bill Johnson, and break down the numbers. We will this evening look at the numbers from persons who expressed which party they will be voting for in the next election and look back at what the week and a half is saying regarding the present and future of both the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party and their leadership. Also joining us are political commentator Linton Gordon and political analyst Paul Bourne. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, ma'am. You're welcome.
For the past week, gentlemen, we have been analyzing the numbers, the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, seeing Dr. Tufton receiving a high favorability rating and Prime Minister Holness getting a very high favorable rating, very similar to that of former Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller. It also showed us Dr. Peter Phillips and the PNP recording low numbers with the Jamaican people. What the past week and a half has said, Linton, what do you see the standings saying for the two political parties and their possible future?
Well, the result of the polls are indicating clearly that there's broad favorable view of the Jamaica Labour Party throughout Jamaica. And similarly, there is widespread negative view of the PNP leadership and the party throughout Jamaica.
Paul?
Well, interesting days are ahead, but if these numbers should be used as they are saying, the People's National Party needs to do something and do something now versus doing something later.
Given that the ministers rank higher than the opposition spokespersons, what does that say about the readiness, not just for Dr. Peter Phillips to govern the country if they win the next general election, but the team he has selected to govern alongside him? Linton, let's start with you.
Well, I don't think that the result of the performance of any and all the politicians is a static matter. We should understand that should there be an election date set and there's campaigning, there's likely to be matters brought to the fore, positions develop, positions change, and so there's this fluidity that should restrain us from coming to a final fixed assessment at this stage. What can be said for certain is that there are ministers in the current administration who are shining stars, including the Prime Minister, and they will front and significantly bring the JLP home should there be an election.
Paul?
Well, historically, members that have been on the slate in terms of out there to be voted for are not necessarily all the members who will be given a ministerial position, and therefore we sort of need to be cautious about that. And at the same time, it's a first past the post system where the Prime Minister has the responsibility and authority to elect those persons who we want to be in a part of his cabinet, and therefore it's not final, as Linton actually mentioned. However, the party would like to use some of the bright and shining stars to be members of the cabinet in order to actually garner support from its members later on.
Now, viewers, as we continue to prepare for election coverage, we are setting up our election center in preparation for the upcoming elections when they are called. This is your election station with live broadcasts of the national debate between Prime Minister Andrew Holness and opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips. We'll be visiting each constituency to hear the views of the people regarding their political representatives. Now, Bill, turning to you and looking at the numbers, what are the numbers of the vote standing showing?
Okay, well, based on the results of our survey, the PNP appears to be in a deep hole at this time. And it's going to be very difficult, I believe, for the party to dig itself out of this hole before the election takes place. As you can see, 38% said they would vote for the JLP, 19% PNP, 20% undecided, 22% said they would not vote, and 1% refused. That's a 2-to-1 plurality for the JLP. Of those who voted for the JLP in 2016, 81% are supporting them now, 1% supporting the PNP, 10% undecided, 8% wouldn't vote. Of those who voted for the PNP in 2016, 13% are voting for the JLP, 58% said they'd vote for the PNP, 17% undecided, 12% wouldn't vote. Now, I think it's important to look at those numbers in that at the present time, 25% of those who voted for the PNP are not planning to vote for it. 13% are planning to vote for the JLP, and another 12% said they would not vote. So the PNP starts off with a potential of just 75%, a base of just 75% of those who voted for them in 2016. And as I said, this is a hole they have to try to dig out of. Now, if you look at those who didn't vote in the last election, 29% say they're going to vote for the JLP, 6% for the PNP, 26% said they wouldn't vote or said they're undecided, and 39% say they would not vote. The bottom line is that the PNP has an awful lot of work to do between now and election day if it wants a good chance of forming the next government.
Paul Linton, you've heard the numbers. What should both parties make of them? Should they be worried? Paul, let's start with you.
Well, I'm not sure they should be worried or otherwise. However, when I look at the figures carefully here, if we were to look at the undecided and to give all the votes to the People's National Party for those who are undecided, they will come out by about a 1% higher margin than that of the JLP. So that in itself is an indication that the People's National Party needs to do something and do something now. However, when you look at those who are undecided, almost 30% of them are willing to vote for the JLP. And the numbers for the PNP is 6%, and that is a worrying sign, particularly within the context that a number of these individuals are the swing voters. Now, if they are the swing voters, and they are lowly seeing the PNP as favorable, then that could mean some issue for the People's National Party. And as I've been saying before, and I'm saying again, that the issue of the leadership is still an issue among Jamaicans as it relates to the People's National Party.
Linton, your thoughts?
I think one of the most significant figure to look at is the number of PNP supporters who, by indicating, I think it's 38%, that they will be voting for the JLP should there be an election, is a clear indication of migration from the support the PNP enjoyed, and that migration is gone 13% to the Jamaica Labour Party. It's going to be hard to convince those persons to return. Secondly, the undecided voters, persons who indicate that they might or might not vote, there is no significant support for the PNP. And when you add that to those who will not vote, it indicates that the PNP is having a problem attracting new members and new supporters and maintaining existing support. When you have those two negatives, it's like a weight pulling you back as you try to go up a hill, and it might be drawing you down more than anything else.
Still looking at the numbers for the undecided are the ones that will not vote. It speaks volume. What exactly are the people saying about their confidence in each party to run the country? Paul, Your thoughts?
And this is an issue that we need to actually look at now, but not only the undecided voters. If we were to look at the base in terms of 81% of those who voted for the JLP the last time prefer the JLP. 58% of those who voted the last time for the PNP said they will actually vote with the PNP. You know, that indicates to you not only a dwindling of the base, but also that the People's National Party members are having a substantial issue, a difficulty, seeing that their party will actually move forward into that of prominence. I know that indicates an issue, because if your voters, your core voters, are saying they are lacking confidence in you, then that's an issue. 17% of them are undecided, and 13% of them will vote for the JLP. Those figures are too large of figures for the PNP to recover from in a short time.
Linton, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Paul, because having only 58% of your persons who voted for you in 2016, it means you have basically lost half your base. But what we need to bear in mind, though, and it's very important, in the last election, I believe the total number of persons who voted was 48%. We have to bear in mind that there's a low turnout in Jamaica generally, and that can affect an election one way or the other. So if for any reason an issue emerge, or issues emerge that are hot, contentious, and persons decide this is it, they might sink the PNP or they might switch to the PNP. Nobody can predict that. They might strengthen the JLP or there might be destruction. And Bruce Golding experienced that which led up to the 2010 difficulty with the Dudus affair. So we don't know what might or might not happen, and therefore we can only comment on the figures now as they appear before us, but it's hard to predict the future.
We took to the streets earlier to hear the thoughts of Jamaicans. This is what they had to say.
Okay, as it is right now, I am not decided on which party to vote for as yet. I'm still thinking about my options. I need to hear more from both political parties before I can decide.
Me personally, I'm voting for the Jamaica Labour Party. And why I think people should vote for that party? Because they're the party for education, roads, work, better living for the people. In particular, how they deal with the coronavirus. They go above and beyond even more than how some first world country dealt with the problems.
I'm not sure right now, which party I vote, but I normally vote for the people in the third party. Too traditional in my favour. Because it's like the man, the government, and so not for the Jamaica Labour Party, but not saying they're not doing a fairly good job.
I'm not voting because for years I have seen my country always remain the same. It don't matter which party is in power, I don't see no changes. Because as long as I see things happening for us as Jamaicans, then I would vote. Because we put government in power to see things happen for us. So if we see things happening, yes, I would vote.
Bill, let's look at the age groups. What are the percentage for those for each party?
Okay, as you can see, for those 18 to 24, 41% are supporting the JLP, 6% supporting the PNP, 21% undecided, 31% say they wouldn't vote. Those 25 to 34 are 38% JLP, 12%. PNP, 20% undecided, 29% wouldn't vote. 35 to 44 is 37 to 20, with 18% undecided, 23% saying they would not vote. 45 to 54, 39, 21, JLP over PNP, 20% undecided, 18% wouldn't vote. 55 to 64, 33% for the JLP, 31% for the PNP, 20% undecided, and 13% wouldn't vote. And no 65 and older, 38% for the JLP, 29% for the PNP, 21% for the undecided, 11% would vote. As you can see from these numbers, the Generation Z or the iGen generation and the millennials at this point are so antithetical toward the PNP that they very easily could become a lost generation in the future for the PNP. I mean, it's really astounding if you look at those numbers for those between 18 and 34. Basically, it's about a 4-to-1 majority for the JLP at this point.
Viewers, Mello TV is prepared to give you full coverage on your elected leaders and political candidates that will be vying to lead you. You will see Mello TV in every area in society leading up to the elections and on election day. Linton, listening to the numbers, how able are the parties to appeal to younger voters, the millennials?
The Jamaica Labour Party is way ahead with its appeal to younger voters, and the result of the poll is confirming that. As I've said, when we analyze previous results, the PNP is yet to craft a policy and a message that will generate interest among young Jamaicans. And the fact that the 18 to 24 age group, they are just attracting 6%, 25 to 34, 12%, is confirmation that young persons are not seeing anything in the PNP to attract them or to cause them to want to support the party. Whether it's a leadership issue or it is beyond the leadership issue, the point is the party needs to have a message, a policy, a concept, something that the young can say, yes, I can go with them because of what they are offering and the leadership they are portraying.
Paul, your thoughts?
Well, politics is substantial about image and not necessarily work. And that is clear here because the JLP is looking at an image of a young person and the PNP is looking at an image of an old person. And that makes a difference. I remember saying the last time that 18 years that the People's National Party spend in power, they spend too long a time and it is haunting them now. When you look at the 18 to 24 and the 25 to 34 years old, it is telling you that the PNP took too long in power and they have lost this group. Lost them in terms of, because if we look at the fact that 21% of them are, 20% are saying, listen, what is that, 21% are saying that they are what? Undecided. And if we were to add that to the PNP 6% which have voted for them, it clearly means that the PNP is woefully inadequate in attracting young persons to that party. And it has to be not only the message that the PNP is also using, but the issue relating to the face of the party, which is that of an old face.
Gentlemen, explain to us how important it will be in the next general and local government elections, being that both will be held at the same time, following yesterday's announcement of it being approved in Parliament for both the JLP and the PNP being able to appeal to all age groups. And does it matter in giving either party the edge in an effort to win the next election? Linton, let's start with you.
Well, I'm not sure if it is finally decided that both elections will be held simultaneously. I don't think the fact that they are being held at the same time will cause any significant difference in the attitude towards the voters. There might be instances where persons will go out because of one or the other. In other words, there might be voters who would not have gone out to vote for either of the candidates for Parliament, but they might have an interest and a likeness for the local government candidate and they will go out and vote. To that extent, there might be some slight effect on the number of persons. But I think what we need to look at is that the results here are showing 20% undecided and 20% will not vote. And that immediately is putting us in the region of 50% of the persons who are on the voters list. We're hovering around, we're still hovering around a half of us not going to vote. And to me, it is sending a message beyond who will win or not win to say that we are having a situation of less and less citizens becoming involved in the democratic process. The last election, when it was 48%, I believe it was the lowest since 1944. Are we going to go lower yet? What next?
Paul, your thoughts?
Well, it's clear that both political parties are not been attracting the people of Jamaica. People of Jamaica are now tired of exactly what they are doing and what they are putting forward. People are tired of corruption. People are tired of how they deal with issues. People are tired of the very structure of the economy. And all those things are playing out in the numbers. And we can see the number of undecided voters, the number of voters who have actually switched from one political party to another. And those are indicators that something is going on. But Linton actually mentioned something which is true. People are attracted to individuals in politics. And therefore, they may go out and vote for a particular individual in local government. So they may be turning out for that. And they may not necessarily go out for the general election and vote for a particular candidate, again, because of issues relating to like and favorability. Now, having both elections at any one time, if that were to be the case, I'm not sure it's a good idea. Because what you could have happening is that if a particular candidate is well favored in a particular party, and that candidate is able to draw out persons on that day, that individual could actually end up having those persons vote for his or her party, and therefore create a problem in terms of these numbers. So that matter is a complex one, and that we should have to be careful of in putting forward. It might suit the PNP, it might suit the JLP, but for one reason or another, it is going to be a changer in the election outcome.
Gentlemen, based on the findings conducted by the Mello TV poll, which party you estimate will most likely win the next general election when that date is announced? Linton, let's start with you.
I think it would be imprudent to make a prediction as to which party might or might not win the election. The Bill's poll was done in June. We can say that were the elections held in June, the JLP would have won. But to predict an election which has not even been called as yet would perhaps be a bit reckless and irresponsible.
Paul?
No, I will go further than Linton. I will say the research was not a predictable research. And the fact it's not a predictable research, it is difficult to use it to make a determination. However, if these numbers are anything to go by, and this projection continues until that of the election, the JLP could win the election. But anything can happen, as we said before, because politics, one day is quite a lot of time, and anything happens could suit a particular party over another. So therefore, to say which one will win the election, I'm uncertain. However, the JLP appears to be doing a pretty good job at the moment based on these numbers. And if it is a continue as is, could be in power for another 5 years.
All right, another question for you, gentlemen, and I'll start with you, Linton. Since you're unable to predict who would win if the next general election is called, what do you say Andrew Holness can do to maintain their popularity going into the upcoming general election whenever it's called?
He needs to continue to put forward policies and implement programs that are generating a favorable view of his government. He needs to pay more attention to matters of education, health, housing, and public infrastructure, roads, utilities. He needs to address those and he needs to continue to keep in touch with the people, to link with their concerns, and to come across as someone who is caring, attentive, and is in charge of his government. There are hitches with corruption, inefficiencies, and incompetence, but it seems to me that persons are tolerating those and are saying, on a whole, there's more good than bad flowing from the administration, and for this reason, there's more positive than negative for him and for his party.
Paul?
Well, I listened to a discussion today among a group of young persons, and I wondered what, if this is true, what is really saying. They said that Andrew is a young guy. We have to vote for youth. We have to vote for the future. Now, if a number of Jamaicans are thinking like that, this is going to be a problem for the People's National Party. Now, all Andrew needs to do is to continue the programs that he has been dealing with, but at the same time, try to deal with some of the issues relating to corruption. Try to handle them in such a way that it shows that he's also concerned about corruption. Even though it's not a substantial issue, it could also go better for him. Now, the People's National Party, on the other hand, needs to address a number of issues. One, they need to address what programs are they coming up with. Two, what face are they trying to create? Three, how are they going to deal with the leadership deficiency that is actually going on? And another important issue that they need to deal with, all the fractions that were created as a result of the election between the two individuals, Bunting and Phillips, that must be addressed in order for it to be more attractive to its base. And that is why a number of their base supporters are not going to support them, because those issues are still lingering in the mouths of persons and it's creating a bitter taste. So the PNP has some work to do, and the JLP needs to continue in its current trajectory.
Final thoughts before we go, gentlemen. Bill, let's start with you. A week and a half worth of poll, your assessment.
Well, I think we have a good indication of how the people of Jamaica felt in the middle of June. I would just suggest that people stay tuned for our future polls between now and Election Day as we follow the opinions and attitudes of the people toward Election Day.
Paul, your final thoughts?
No, Carl Stone started this idea out of Michigan State University years ago, and it is actually coming to Jamaica now, and it's really an interesting day that we can begin to use poll in a scientific way to deal with how people see things and what is the likely outcome of an election. Now, this experience for me has been a good one, but the Jamaicans should begin to think about this not so much as gospel, but as an indication of thought of persons at a particular time and how they can use this thought to help them to be better at doing business. That is voting for one party or voting for another party.
Linton, your final thoughts?
My greatest concern is the number of Jamaicans who are not participating in the democratic process by voting. We have to appreciate our history and what our foreparents went through to get this opportunity beginning in 1944, where everyone can vote. Because before that, it depended on matters such as the number of windows in your house, the size of your land, your color. And for us to get this democratic right, and more than half of us are turning our backs on the right to vote, I'm really saddened by that. I would really like to see persons become more involved in the process, including the emergence of strong third parties, so that we have a vibrant democracy with tolerance for each other's view and with respect for each other's view, and with the opportunity for everybody to make their input without any fear of violence against them, oppression, discrimination, or any act inconsistent with the law.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Come tomorrow, Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, along with pollster Bill Johnson, will join us in discussing additional findings on the COVID-19 pandemic in Jamaica. from a Mello TV poll. That's also a discussion you won't want to miss. Stay tuned to Mello TV as we bring you full coverage of your leaders, members of parliament and councillors, bringing you live coverage of national regional debates between Prime Minister Andrew Holness and opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, also constituency polls and candidate debates. Thank you for joining us as we analyze data in our Mello TV poll conducted by pollster Bill Johnson. We also want to thank political commentator Linton Gordon and political analyst Paul Bourne. I'm Nicole Hales. Thanks for watching.